How's my hair?
Looks really coiffed. You look really nice.
Oh, thanks. You do too.
Thanks.
What's with the shorts? What do you wear when you ride in the winter?
Pants. No, I actually do wear shorts.
You do wear shorts?
Mm-hmm.
Get that blood
Regardless of how cold it is, I'm wearing shorts.
30 degrees and you're going to wear shorts.
And you can pull socks up to here, and then you can wear a knee pad that covers from there to there, and they might as well be pants.
But what if it's just an all trail? Like, you don't need to wear pants, or your mic is...
God, I told you. I told you.
Well, wear a collared shirt or something.
I don't wear collared shirts.
Hey everyone out there, we're back. I'm back with Gene, and we are chilling. We're in these really nice, comfortable chairs out at Gene's place. Why not?
It's a beautiful day.
Beautiful, it's still spring, but it's a little chilly. We're back here in front of the camera. Why are we back in front of the camera again? I mean, it's only been a month.
Yeah, it's only been a month. But I think we need to cap off the suspension video that the video series that we started.
Yeah.
And talk about how to get from 85% to close to 100% in terms of dialing the suspension. So I think
all right.
You've had some time to get some riding under your belt, which I think is really important. That's really the only way you're going to get it from most of the way to even close to all of the way. You just have to ride the bike.
Ride the bike I did, and I even wrecked it. Just recently, just 2 days ago.
Yep.
But the bike survived. Everything survived except my brake lever. And there's the dog.
Hello, Penny.
But yeah, I took it to Baker. I've taken it to Chickasaw Trace, some a little bit gnarlier places around Middle Tennessee, in East Tennessee. Baker is in near Knoxville. Yeah, I think I've put drops, chunk, even just regular trail. I've taken it on, and I have to say it's a night and day difference. Not really so because of the frame, but I mean, we changed a lot of things. I mean, we changed the suspension,
Everything
we changed brakes,
yeah.
we changed, I mean, just so much. So I'm not really comparing apples to apples when I'm talking about the Abajo, but yeah. It really has shown what all this, can do for you.
So I think it's important to recap that when we set this thing up, that we really went deep on getting the right sag setting. Mm-hmm. And obviously we stressed the importance of getting the correct sag setting.
Yep.
And that to me is the foundation of the suspension house, if you were. So it's important to get that right. And we spent the time to do that. We did bottom out testing as well, and then we went back and added more spacers, and then we set sag again. I mean, it was a really long process.
Hopefully you survived through all that.
Yeah.
Because
thanks for sticking with us if you're still here.
If you're still here, then that means you're a numbers nerd, you're a mechanics nerd.
Or you want your bike to ride well.
And you want it to ride well, but I mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, we're glad that you stuck around for this.
Yeah, so that was a long process, but so very important.
Totally.
And with that, we dialed rebound, and we talked about what rebound means and how that's an inverse relationship to the air pressure, or spring rate, as I like to call it, and those two things really go together. So like once we got those things dialed, we talked briefly about compression and the difference between high speed and low speed, both in compression and rebound.
Yep.
But we decided, or I think this is the way to do it, is to leave compression settings essentially wide open. Mm-hmm. Like not damped at all, which I know it's an opinion, it's subjective. Most manufacturers will suggest that you start kind of somewhere in the middle,
right, with
all your settings on compression, and start from there and kind of work both directions.
Yeah.
So I find it easier for guys who are toward the heavier end of the weight range. Bobby, myself, many of you, I'm sure. I mean, we're not the only two chubby guys there are. But I find with those guys, you have to run quite a bit of air pressure. You have to run quite a few spacers to keep from bottoming out. And so when doing that, you are in fact resisting that suspension's desire to compress because you have such a stiff spring.
Right.
So to retain any kind of good off the top feel and that supple feel going over small bumps and basically small bump sensitivity, it really helps for compression to be wide open. So the only thing you're pushing through is the spring itself. There's no additional damping to slow that shaft speed down.
Right.
And so leaving it wide open, I find for particularly dudes who are on that other end of the spectrum with higher pressures, it feels better. And most of the time you don't even need any low speed compression at all. I mean, and that's where we started. And so I said, let's start wide open. And then as the need arises, you know, and that's the whole point of this conversation, is to talk about what those needs are, how you felt it on the trail, and how that translates to adding maybe a couple clicks of low speed and high speed compression here and there.
Yeah.
Because I think we're happy with everything else, right?
Yeah, when I took it to Baker Creek in Knoxville, the first bit of chunk that I hit, I immediately felt like it was already a dream, but it was amazing to have that fork just being able to hit all the bumps and not feel it right away. It was almost like you could feel the compression, but it was almost like I was gliding over. And I wasn't really going very fast a lot over some of this stuff. I was actually pretty nervous. I'd never been to Baker Creek, so I hadn't ridden a lot of this downhill chunk. Also, it was a brand new bike. It's the first trail I hit, so I was
taking it easy. Right?
I was taking it easy. But still, even at a slower speed, I could still tell how well the fork, having that compression, that high speed compression just wide open, just allowed me to feel the full travel of the fork, and how nimble, or not nimble, but how supportive it was, going all the way down that chunk. And then as I got used to the bike and hit more trails, I started to go faster and faster, and still the same thing. It was just eating it up. And some of my videos, you can even hear me saying, man, this thing just eats it up.
Oh, dude, this thing eats it up.
It was like the common phrase that I would throw it out there, because it would just take it, and it just felt so good. Now on some of the jumps and the drops, I did notice that I would, you know, not bottom out all the way, but it was getting pretty high up there.
Yeah.
So for that, I would add one click, and that made all the difference. Just adding that one click.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what you're feeling when you're going over the chunk is basically the fork just getting out of the way. You know, the fork is just giving way to that obstacle that you're hitting. So you're hitting a big square edge rock. Instead of doing this and then lifting the whole front of your bike up, it's doing this and then moving out of the way and rolling right over it.
Right.
The more compression that you add, the more resistance to that moving out of the way feeling that you're going to have.
Right.
And so you have to balance. So like support is on one hand, and small bump sensitivity and plush ride are kind of on the other hand. And so we're trying to find a spot in the middle where you get the support that you need. So when you do go off those big hits, you're not blowing all the way through the travel and feeling like you're going, you know, way forward onto the bike, or that you feel like the fork just gives way and there's nothing there.
Right.
Because that's not a good confidence inspiring feeling at all.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to balance. And I think we obviously there was still a little room. You didn't completely like bottom out or clap the suspension or anything. So you still had probably 5 or 6 or 10% left of travel, which is good. It's where you want to be. So I feel confident that in the sag setting that we had designed before.
Yeah.
So to figure out where you need to add clicks of compression, that's really the next thing. So I told Bobby, if you know you're in a situation where you're pedaling, for example, or you're loading into the face of a lip, or you're leaning into a berm, like big smooth body weight shifts on the bike, and you feel like the bike is giving away too much, like if you're pedaling and you're getting a lot of bob, or the bike's kind of undulating a whole lot, well then that's where you start to add maybe a low click or a low speed compression damping. So you add a couple clicks and see if you get the support you're after without losing the small bump sensitivity.
Right.
Because that's the trade-off. And just like Bobby said, he's going off some big jumps, big drops, and he's kind of not quite getting the support that he needs. Well, that is a high shaft speed event. And that's another thing I want to kind of touch on, is a lot of people confuse low speed and high speed as a bike speed thing, and it's not a bike speed thing. Right. Though bike speed can induce those things, you need to think of it as shaft speed, and that's how fast the actual stanchion is moving in and out of the lower leg or the air can. So you know, pedaling would be kind of a smoother, low speed event,
Right.
and a big hit is going to be moving much quicker and thus a high speed event. So it's really, honestly, that simple. And people want to get really confused about it, and that's the way you can always remember it. And I don't think you've had any pedaling efficiency issues, right?
No, I haven't noticed anything. In fact, it's improved. Now again, you know, put the oval on, and with the steeper seat tube angle, pedaling is just, I mean, from what I can, you know, physically do, it's been better. I've noticed that trails that I've ridden before with the Abajo, I'm able to pedal much more efficiently up. So I mean,
Which is funny because this is a much more travel than the Abajo.
Yeah, much more travel.
So this should be a worse pedaling bike, honestly.
Right, but it's not.
Should be.
Should be.
But that speaks to a couple things: good suspension and good kinematics.
Right.
Like kinematics will help you with that too, because I mean it might have great anti-bob.
Right.
You know, and no kickback, and you know, I mean, so
Right.
that's all designed in the linkage, but a
Right.
good supportive suspension will do that as well. And because we're running quite a bit of air pressure, I think we were at 250 is where we
240.
stopped? 240. Okay.
Yeah.
So we were quite a ways up there, and that is a lot of support.
Yeah.
So like to think you would need any additional support from the low speed compression circuit seems unlikely, and that's kind of what we're coming to, is that it's really not necessary.
No.
And then, you know, take a couple of big hits and he needs a little support and maybe slow down the shaft speed, because that's all compression does.
Right.
Is that damper is just slowing the shaft speed.
Right.
That's literally all it does.
Yeah.
And it's oil moving through an orifice.
Right.
That's it. And then the more damping you add, the smaller the orifice, and so the harder for the oil to move through, thus slowing that speed from this to.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's oversimplified, but you know, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
And so it seems that a couple clicks of high speed on both the shock and the fork are really all you need. I would recommend doing some bracketing. And, you know, on a RockShox product, because there are less clicks of adjustment, bracketing isn't quite as important because you can feel virtually every click.
Yeah.
On Fox products, because there's more range of adjustment, often it takes 2 or 3 or 4 clicks to kind of really feel the difference. So what I recommend people do is, and you've heard this 1,000 times from Jordy at Fox and 100 other people, that bracketing really helps because you can really feel the change. It's just like when we initially set this up, and I said, hey, here's what fast rebound feels like, and just open the rebound circuit all the way up, and then closed it all the way down, and you could really feel the difference, and that, you know, speaks to people because they can feel it.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same idea with bracketing.
Right.
You do one click, and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel one click, or do I feel it?
Yeah.
You know, and then you start questioning what you're doing. So I advise people add 2 and 3 and 4 clicks and be like, is that better?
Yeah.
Because you can feel that.
Yeah.
Like, is that better? And then you ride your same loop of trails you're used to.
Right.
Try to ride the same thing over and over. And like, is that better?
Right.
Yes. Okay. That's better in every way. There's no downside. Cool. Add a couple more clicks.
Right. See if it gets
Is
worse.
that better?
Right.
And then oftentimes you add a few more and it's not. So then you say, okay, I'm going to go back to, well, I added 2 more clicks on top of 4, so now it's 6. Let's try 5. Is that better? Okay, 5's better. And you may have actually at that point zeroed in on your number, because you're going to do this.
Right.
Until it all narrows down, and then you're at that spot. So that's the idea here.
Yeah.
I mean, and on the fork, 1 click might have made enough difference for you. But
Well,
my suggestion would be to try 2 or 3.
Well, I know on the high-speed compression, it mattered instantly.
Yeah.
Because there's only 4 clicks of compression.
Yep.
So,
And that's why I say on a RockShox product, that matters more. 1 click matters in a big way.
Right.
And on a Fox product, there might be 12 clicks.
Right.
And so 1 click.
Yeah. Well, because it's 10 clicks on the
On the
shock.
speed. Yeah.
On the shock of the high speed on the on the Fox.
And so you know, 1
Big
click
difference.
may not have been enough to feel much of anything.
Probably not. I added it, and it just it's still there. Like the
Which is about where we were when we set up your sag and we
Right.
tested bottom out resistance on the little kicker back here.
right. But I was bottoming out before, like all the way. So it's
Sure.
still you can see it's already improved even with just one click.
With just one click. Yep.
So, but I haven't done that. I haven't done the bracketing just because already the bike feels so good. So
Yeah.
I haven't tried doing that yet. But I know I should just because maybe I can feel better. You know.
Yeah, but to me, if you're really going to get the ultimate suspension setup and get the most out of what you've paid for, it's important that it's an ever-changing process.
Yeah.
Not forever, but, you know, I think you'll reach a point of diminishing returns, and you're probably there now.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
you know, as we went through with the first two videos, you know, getting this suspension to where it is, like you said, is, you know, 80, 90% of the way, and then just riding it and then just feeling how it goes. And like I said before, is like it felt so good already. I've only made a little bit of adjustment. But for some people, like you said, it could be, you know, where you really want to dial it in. Maybe you're a little bit more, you know, in tune with how you ride. Maybe you're, you know, a more proficient rider than I am.
maybe you're racing.
Maybe you're racing.
People who are racing, their needs
They're gonna,
are completely different, and they would probably ride a much stiffer setup than this,
totally,
honestly.
totally.
Faster rebound, stiffer everything.
Right,
You know,
Yeah.
because they're about going fast.
right,
And this is about having fun,
right.
being efficient,
Yeah,
being safe,
Right.
predictable.
yeah. I love this process. Like I was telling Gene before, like, you know, this is something everybody should do, but everybody can do. That's the thing. It's like you know, the way you have laid it out, it's like
It seems not approachable, but I think it is very approachable if
Absolutely.
you take an analytical, you know, take on it and
Yeah.
kind of slice it up.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we did. I mean,
Yeah.
the first slice is get all your stuff on.
Yeah.
Like, get suited up like you're gonna ride your bike. I
Yeah.
mean, that's easy.
That's easy.
That's
Yep.
easy. We set sag, test out bottom out,
Yeah.
add a spacer, set sag again.
Yeah.
Dial rebound to match that spring rate. That's the first big slice. If you can knock that slice out, honestly, I think that's the slice of the pie that people don't often do very well.
Yeah.
And so they're messing around with compression settings, and they're trying to make up for a bad
The
initial
first part.
setup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you cut that up into pieces and say, look, if I can just get that first piece knocked out and do it really well
Yeah.
and spend the time, that matters so much more than everything. And you can see Bobby added one click of high-speed compression. So like
That was
that
it.
slice that we did at the beginning is the big important one.
Yeah.
Again, it's the foundation of the suspension house.
And if you
So-
just take the time to do it, it's gonna matter all the way down the line. It's how you're gonna enjoy the bike more. It's how, I mean, that's the thing. It's like we set it up really well, and so I've been enjoying the bike.
Yeah.
I've been having fun the last month, and and if you just take the time to do it, it's kind of like in my chiropractor video. It's like if you do the warm-up exercises, it's just going to matter that much more as you ride. You're going to feel better. You're not going to hurt. You're not going to all those things. Same thing with this. It's like if you take the time to set it up, do the work. You know, it's not going to take you that long. It's a day or two to set it up, and then you know you just keep dialing it in every ride. And then you're good. You don't have to. It's not like a 3-month, 6-month process or
No.
anything like that. So
No, and the other thing I like to think of, that actually kind of scares me, is the number of people that have probably gotten rid of their bike, have swapped out suspension components, that have hated on a particular geometry or whatever, all simply because their bike wasn't set up well. I think the number of people that have moved on from a bike, a suspension, a geometry, mountain biking in general, just because their bike was set up poorly, has got to be a large percentage of the people who ride a mountain bike.
that's crazy.
Don't you think? I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure, but I'm just saying it's just crazy to think about that was.
because people are like, oh man, this old geometry, it sucks.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, is it the geometry or is it the bike setup?
Right.
You know, or
Yeah.
man, this suspension is terrible. Like, is the suspension terrible, or is it just not ever been set up?
Right.
And that, to me, is, I think, a question everybody should ask themselves before they pull the trigger on something new. And if the answer is, I've done all that, and I can tell you what the limitations of my current bike and its suspension are. If you can tell me what they are, then I'm like, okay, well then that makes sense. Let's get you something that solves those problems. But until then, you're fixing a problem that may not exist, simply because you have a really terrible setup.
That is nuts. You know, and that's what I love about what you do.
Yeah.
You know, and I know I've preached this on social media and everything, but you know, that's what I think is so important about guys like you, that it's not just about getting a bike in, doing a repair or doing a build. You specifically look at the person and you make sure that they're getting the most out of their bike with the bike that they have.
I'm glad to do it. I mean, it's just something I think that was born out of necessity. I don't think a lot of people do it. I don't think a lot of shops do it, and I don't think they have a lot of time to do it. And I can understand why they don't, because it is a time-consuming process. Like we initially said, probably I think in the first video, like most of the time you buy a bike, the guy at the shop says, "Hey, how much do you weigh?" He looks on the back of the fork and he's like, "Cool, 90 psi." Pumps it up to 90 psi. See you later. It never ever gets touched again.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And I understand why it exists. I'm not faulting anybody. You know, like
Right.
It's not the shop's fault. Like, dude, who has time to sell a bike to somebody and be like, "Cool, do you have 3 hours?"
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's
Right.
that's not reasonable either.
It's
So
not.
I don't know how to fix the problem aside from doing what we're doing here.
Well, and I think that's what's important about this video, is that, and that's what, and then you can go on YouTube and find tons of videos like this, you know.
Sure.
But I think what we're trying to say in this video is that you got to take the time. We're going to walk you through how this you know plays out, and what you need to do for yourself, you know, to prepare for that and to understand why you got to do it. And then, you know, we've done that, and now this is the culmination of it. It's the not really the inclusion. It's just more just like, hey, you know.
It's an open-ended story. There
Exactly.
still could be more to this, but
Yeah.
the key is that you're updating your note.
Yep.
That has all of your settings in it. That's a really important thing that we touched on in the past, that's updating. I think that's a great challenge for everybody. Like, even if you don't go through this whole process, like, I think everybody should have an Apple Note or whatever, you know, whatever it's
device
an
you
email
use.
that you send to yourself, or
Yep.
whatever, or a text thread you send to yourself, or whatever makes sense for you, but you have your settings written down.
Yeah.
And you don't just go twisting knobs willy-nilly, because I've seen people do it.
Right.
And they just don't know how much damage they can be doing to their ride by doing that.
Yeah.
So
Well, we need to wrap it up.
we do. We talked a lot about
We talked a lot.
suspension. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's been a great conversation. Gene, thanks.
absolutely.
I
Thank you.
love coming out to your place. Look at all this nature.
Nature things.
You gotta love nature. It's spring. It's riding season.
Yep.
I'm excited. So
This is more. This information is more applicable now than it has been in the last 3 or 4 months.
exactly. Now that everybody's coming out of hibernation.
Oh yeah,
and
dude, they're coming out of the woodwork now.
It's about to kick off the riding season. So I hope you guys enjoyed this information. Again, if you have any questions, please leave those in the comments below. Either I or even Gene will get back to you on some of those. As always, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Keep on riding.
Oh, it's the snap for the end. Look at that. Look at you. It's like a slate.
It kept recording, I guess.
It did. I mean, I saw the lens is open, and I'm
It's still
telling you, one
recording.
of those power settings was it.
I didn't click a power setting.
All right, food's here.
All right, cool.
I should go eat foods.